Why do I keep seeing 1111, 1010, 1515? Is the universe calling me? Have you ever looked at the clock and seen 1111? What if it wasn't just a coincidence, but a message the universe is trying to send you? In the rush of daily life, we rarely pause to reflect on the subtle signs around us. But what if I told you that repeated numbers on the clock, like 1111, aren't random? Many people around the world believe these sequences carry special messages, a kind of subtle communication from the universe to you. In this video, we'll uncover the mysteries behind 1111 and other recurring numbers, exploring how they can serve as spiritual guides to transform your life and help you make important decisions. So stay with me, because what comes next might change how you see the world. Welcome to this unique moment, where the visible and invisible meet, inviting you to see beyond appearances. Perhaps you're here because you feel something greater is unfolding in your life, something you don't fully understand yet. Don't worry. The mysteries of the universe have their own way of speaking to us, and today, together, we'll decode one of those hidden whispers. Allow yourself to be guided between the lines of time and space, where every sign is an invitation to transformation. Repeating numbers, like echoes of something unseen, are not just coincidences. They're fragments of a message that resonates with what you're seeking deep within. They arrive gently, almost unnoticed, for those who are attuned to their journey. In this moment, you'll discover that these signs hold more than answers. They contain questions that can shift your perspective. Open your mind, embrace the possibilities, and join me in exploring the paths the universe has prepared for you. Comment below. Have you ever seen 1111 or another repeating number? Share your experience, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to uncover more powerful messages from the universe. Have you noticed how certain numbers keep appearing in your life? Maybe it's 1111, 2222, or another time with repeating digits, almost as if they're trying to tell you something important. For many, it might seem like mere coincidence. But what if these numbers were signs, subtle reminders that the universe is trying to communicate with you? Imagine looking at the clock, lost in thought, and seeing 1111, 1515, or 2323. It feels like an invisible nudge, as if someone is saying, "Pay attention, something is happening." But what does it really mean? These repeating times have been linked to spiritual awakening, the pursuit of balance and alignment with something greater. Whether you're seeking answers or facing a moment of doubt, these numbers appear to guide your journey. It's as if the universe is whispering, you're on the right path, even if the answers aren't clear yet. Each repeated sequence carries a unique energy, a specific meaning that can illuminate the next step on your path. Some describe these encounters as divine touches or cosmic hugs, reminding us that we're never alone, even during the most challenging phases. Have you ever felt something like that? These numbers are not just static symbols, they're vibrant messages that can change how you view your life. When understood, they become practical guides for conscious and transformative decisions. Imagine these repeating times as arrows pointing to the true north of your journey. They don't offer all the answers immediately, but illuminate the path ahead, one step at a time. Throughout this video, we'll explore what these numerical sequences truly mean. We'll discover how to interpret their messages and apply them to life's most critical moments. To do this, it's essential to open your mind and allow yourself to observe. Often, the deepest signs are hidden in the simplest situations, waiting for you to notice them. Each sequence, whether it's 1111, 1010, or 2020, is an opportunity for connection. They remind us to align our intentions with something greater and to trust the process, even when we don't have all the answers. Get ready to open your eyes to these signs, listen to what the universe has to say, and transform these messages into a driving force for your journey. Imagine your life as a giant puzzle. Each piece represents a decision, a moment, or a challenge. Now, think of repeating numbers as small hints, almost as if the universe is showing you where to place the next piece. For example, the time 1111, so common in accounts, is often associated with a spiritual portal. But what about when you see 2222, 1212, or even 2323? Each sequence has a unique meaning, and all seem connected to something greater. Many people report that these numbers appear during moments when they need guidance the most. It's as if the universe sends a subtle reminder. Look beyond the surface. There's more happening here than you realize. Think of this as a secret language. Just as music or art can convey emotions without words, repeated numbers are messages that go beyond logic. They invite us to pause and reflect, even if just for a moment. A common example is 2222, which often appears when we are seeking balance. Imagine being in a day filled with difficult decisions, and in the middle of it, you notice this number on the clock. It emerges as an invitation to reassess and adjust your trajectory. Meanwhile, 2323 may signify that something important is about to conclude. Perhaps you're closing a chapter or preparing for a new beginning. It's like the final page of a book, ready to make way for a new story. There are fascinating accounts of people who ignored these signs only to realize their meaning later. One entrepreneur, for example, shared how he dismissed seeing 2222 for months, only to discover he had been neglecting his personal life in favor of work. But it's not just cautionary tales. There are also stories of transformation. Like a woman who kept seeing 1111 during a difficult phase in her life and finally decided to pursue her dreams. The number seemed to say, now is the time. These numbers act as a mirror. When you see them, you're being called to look within, evaluate your choices, and ask yourself, am I living in alignment with what I truly want? Perhaps you're stuck in a cycle, and 2222 or 2323 is the key to realizing that something needs to change. These synchronicities are invitations to act, not just to observe. Just as stars guide navigators, these numbers guide those willing to pay attention. They don't appear by chance. They're there to light the way, no matter how confusing it may seem. So next time you notice a time like 1111, 1313, or 2121, stop and reflect. Ask yourself, what's the next step the universe is encouraging me to take? This simple act of awareness might be the start of something extraordinary. Pausing to notice the signs around us is an act of courage. In a world where everything seems to move so fast, numbers like 0101, 1313, and 1818 call us to slow down, reflect, and reconnect with our deepest purpose. These numbers are more than coincidences. They are reminders that something greater is happening. But to understand them, you need to make room in your mind and heart, allowing intuition to guide you. Think about the days when you've noticed these numbers. Did they appear during moments of doubt, in challenging situations, or just before making an important decision? These recurrences are rarely random. For example, 1111 is a call to align your thoughts with your intentions. It suggests being mindful of what you're asking from the universe, as what you focus your energy on has the power to manifest. Meanwhile, 2222 speaks of balance. It invites us to examine our priorities and adjust what's out of harmony in our lives. It's a gentle reminder that without inner balance, any external achievement loses its luster. And 2323? This number may carry a message of closure, signaling it's time to let go of something that no longer serves your growth. It could be a habit, a relationship, or even a way of thinking that needs to be released. These numbers don't just highlight what needs attention, they also offer strength and encouragement to act. It's as if the universe is saying, you're not alone. There's something guiding you every step of the way. Reflection on these signs requires presence. You can start by keeping a journal, noting each time you observe a synchronicity and what you were thinking or feeling at the moment. Over time, patterns will begin to emerge. You'll notice how these numbers appear at critical moments, offering clarity and guidance. This simple practice can become a powerful tool for self-awareness. It's important to remember that these signs don't carry absolute answers, but rather directions. They help us refocus, question our choices, and move forward with greater confidence. The beauty of these numbers lies in their simplicity. They don't require elaborate interpretations, but instead ask you to be present, mindful, and open to seeing beyond the obvious. By embracing these numbers as part of your journey, you transform small moments into opportunities for growth. And so, each 1111, 000, or 2020 becomes a bridge to something greater, a reminder that your life holds meaning and purpose. Repeated numbers invite you to act. They encourage you to transform awareness into practice. These signs aren't just for observation. They inspire changes that resonate with your life's purpose. Each time you encounter these times, pause for a moment and make a request. Ask yourself, what do I need to adjust or strengthen in my life right now? How can I align with what the universe is showing me? Use these moments as opportunities to express gratitude. Say aloud or silently, I'm grateful for the signs that guide me. I'm open to learning and evolving. This simple practice deepens your connection to the meaning of these numbers. Why not turn these moments into prayers? For example, when you see 2222, ask for balance. May my actions be guided by harmony and clarity. May I find peace in the midst of my choices. Seeing 1111 could be a moment to declare intentions. Visualize what you want to achieve and say, I am aligned with my purpose. I am ready to manifest what is best for my journey. Remember, these numbers are not just reminders for yourself. They are also opportunities to intercede for others. For instance, at 2323, ask for strength and guidance for those around you who are going through transitions. A powerful practice is to write your intentions or concerns on paper whenever you notice these times. Read them aloud as a commitment to yourself and the universe, declaring your willingness to take action. These signals can also serve as invitations to break patterns that are holding you back. When you see 2222, ask yourself, am I staying true to my values? What can I do to live in greater harmony with myself and others? At 2323, it may signify the need to let go of something that no longer serves you. Reflect. What am I holding on to that I need to release? Am I ready to let go and make room for the new? The repetition of these numbers is a reminder that you have the power to change. Use them as anchors to bring your attention to the present and make more conscious decisions aligned with what truly matters. Thus, each sequence that appears becomes an opportunity for you to seek guidance, reflect on your choices, and reaffirm your trust in the larger process of life. By incorporating this practice into your daily life, you transform the simple act of looking at the clock into a deeper connection with the universe, creating an ongoing dialogue that strengthens your journey and decisions. Throughout life, we receive signs that we are not alone on our journey. Repeated numbers like 0909 or 1616 are sacred reminders that the universe is by our side, guiding every step with wisdom. These moments, often simple, carry incredible power. They invite us to look within, reflect on our choices, and trust in something greater, even when the answers aren't yet clear. Each number is an opportunity to pause, a chance to reconnect. When you notice these signs, remember that they carry not only messages, but also energy and courage to act with awareness. Imagine your life as a river, flowing toward a great ocean. Repeated numbers are like stepping stones along the way, showing you where to step safely. The number 1111 reminds you that your thoughts have power. Focus on what you want to create. The number 2222 urges you to find balance amidst life's storms. And 2323 suggests it's time to close cycles and prepare for new beginnings. These numbers act as silent guides, showing there is a greater purpose in everything we experience. Even challenges are part of this plan, shaping our essence and strengthening us for what lies ahead. The true beauty of these signs lies in their simplicity. They don't require immediate understanding, just a willingness to listen and learn. Each time you recognize them, you are telling the universe, "I am attentive, I am ready." The journey we walk is full of mysteries, and repeated numbers are just one of them. But by embracing these signs, you discover that there is a constant dialogue between you and something far greater. Allow yourself to trust in this process. No matter how uncertain the path may seem, the signs are there to remind you that there is direction and purpose in every step. The next time you notice a repeated number, don't just see it as a number, see it as an invitation. See it as a reminder that you are part of something extraordinary and that every step is an important piece of life's puzzle. Synchronicity is a gift. It's proof that even in chaos, there is order. Recognize it, accept it, and let it inspire you to live with greater awareness, courage, and purpose. Remember, numbers don't lie, and the universe always speaks to those who are willing to listen. Now it's up to you to decide how you will respond to these signs. The journey is yours, but the messages are always within reach. Repeated numbers are more than coincidences. They are invitations from the universe to look beyond the surface and align your life with a greater purpose. Each sequence is a unique message, guiding you in moments of doubt, encouraging changes, and reaffirming that you are on the right path. Recognizing these signs is like opening a dialogue with the universe, allowing it to illuminate your journey. No matter how challenging the path may seem, remember that these signs exist to strengthen your confidence and bring clarity to your next step. You are not alone. Every number that appears is a reminder that there is order in chaos and that your life is part of something extraordinary. Trust, move forward, and allow yourself to be guided by this transformative energy. If you have noticed these signs or started to observe something new after this video, share your experience in the comments. Let's build a community connected and inspired by the universe. Don't forget to like this content, to subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications so you don't miss any powerful messages. Every interaction helps to spread this message and reach more people who need this insight in their lives. Thank you so much for your company in this video. May your journey be illuminated and full of purpose. See you in the next one. Bye.